Good morning, Kuhner country. Okay, my friends, just a few hours ago, the House of Representatives passed the bill that was also passed the day before in the Senate, the rescissions package that Trump promised he would muscle through Congress, and they did just in time. They had a Friday deadline later today, and both the Senate and the House, under Trump's prodding and leadership, have now delivered $9 billion. It is a spending cut, so-called rescissions package, that now will completely cut spending to the United States International Agency for Development, USAID. All of that foreign aid is now gone. PBS, NPR, their funding has now been cut completely for the next 2 years, gone. So $9 billion in total in real spending cuts. As many papers have pointed out, this is the first time in over 25 years that there's actually been a spending cut enacted by Congress, a true rescissions package, not the usual slowing the growth of spending, but actually cutting something. And look, it was pretty obvious. By going after USAID, which was the Democrats' private slush fund, in which they used to bribe the media to send money to their favorite NGOs so they could continue to have open borders and resettle this country with illegal aliens. And of course, paying for transgender sex change operations, say in places like Colombia, or pushing for DEI in Serbia and places all over the world. This was how the swamp, A, was able to buy off and control the media, and B, use money to subvert and control countries around the world. That pot of cash, that massive slush fund, is now gone. As for NPR and PBS, look, they say they can survive without taxpayer dollars. They've been claiming now for years that they're so profitable on their own, that they're generating all of this money from donations, from revenue, from support from viewers. Well, and that taxpayer dollars are just a drop in the bucket. Well, if that's the case, then you should have no problem with this. Instead, of course, NPR and PBS were acting like the sky is falling. Now, the question that they can't answer is, these are both very far left media operations. They're not even media. They are left-wing propagandists. So they're not interested in being nonpartisan, in being objective, which is what they should be. Remember, it is National Public Radio, NPR. PBS, it is the public broadcasting service. It is supposed to be for all Americans of whatever political persuasion or stripe. And that's why you're receiving taxpayer money. Instead, for decade after decade after decade, not only have they been Democrat partisans, but they have been on the hard socialist left, pushing anti-Americanism, hatred for this country, hatred for conservatives, Republicans, the family, you name it, across the board. And so now, finally, the reckoning came. And why should I, as a conservative, why should you, as Trump supporters, have your taxpayer dollars go to fund a far left-wing propaganda operation in the name of quote-unquote public broadcasting? So, no, they don't deserve and they shouldn't get our taxpayer money. Trump, many Republicans have talked about it for decades. to cut funding to NPR and cut off the money, the flow to NPR and PBS, Trump has delivered. Many Republicans and conservatives have said it's time to cut foreign aid. Trump has delivered. So it's not, $9 billion in the larger scope of things is, a drop in the ocean. I understand it's a $7 trillion budget, but it's an important step in the right direction. It may be a small step, but it's an important step. Now, the reason why this, again, victory after victory after victory, the reason why the left is freaking out, and I mean they are losing their minds over this, is because not only is NPR and PBS now going to be in big trouble, so part of their media apparatus, their propaganda state-run media apparatus, just took a major blow. But it cuts off their ability now to bribe and redirect funds to prop up the New York Times, CNN, other Reuters, other media outlets that were receiving USAID money. So the swamp now has seen its power diminished substantially. Overall, what this shows, and as I was going to talk about this yesterday, but of course the whole Epstein scandal flared up again. But there's no question, if you just stand back objectively, Trump is clearly on a roll. Trump is achieving and has racked up some historic achievements, whether it is on the border, whether it's with Iran, whether it's in foreign policy, whether it's with energy, whether you can run down the whole women in sports. He has broken the University of Pennsylvania. He is breaking Harvard over anti-Semitism. What you're seeing is accomplishment after accomplishment after accomplishment. And this rescissions package, which is now going to go right to his desk for him to sign, comes on the heels of the big, beautiful bill. Now, there's a poll out, and I think this explains not everything, but it explains a lot, that even in the midst of the Epstein uproar, you would think Trump's poll numbers would be dropping like a stone. No. Trump's poll numbers are in fact going up amidst the Epstein scandal. Not going down, they're going up. And I believe, and you may disagree with me, but this is what I wanted to do on yesterday's show, which is to talk about Trump's, to me, I think, tremendous handling of the economy. One of the reasons why his approval ratings are getting, are going up, and they continue to go up, and why so many are giving him high marks, is because, yes, he's done a phenomenal job on the border. Yes, they agree with his deportations, but the American public now are starting to feel that we are in the midst of a booming, roaring economy. And he's doing a great job on the economy. If you just stand back objectively, he has tamed inflation. Inflation now is essentially dead. He has lowered gas prices. I talked about this yesterday a little bit. I can tell you, I mean, I know. In my area, regular, I put regular in my car, $2.99. It's under $3. When I tank up, it's about $52 now to tank up my car. Under Joey, it was $80, $78, $76, $79, that range. I am saving at least $25 a week every time I tank up my car. I mean, you just do the math. That's $100 a month. That's $1,200 a year. I mean, it adds up. It's not peanuts. He's now brought in trillions of dollars in foreign investment. He's now unleashed a manufacturing renaissance here in the United States. He has won the trade war with China. Everybody said it couldn't be done. He's done it. He has slashed the budget deficit by a third. A third. And in the big, beautiful bill, he has delivered the biggest tax cut in U.S. history. So you look at what Trump has accomplished, and this isn't just 6 months. It is absolutely incredible. And I believe the economy is only going to get stronger and stronger and stronger. And so my question to you, and I really want this to be a caller-driven show today, because you're the ones that can really answer this. Are you feeling the benefits of the Trump economy? Okay, a couple lines are open. Once the lines are full, Kuhner Man's going to unleash the hounds. I would like to ask all of you, the great audience of Kuhner Country, are you feeling the benefits of the Trump economy? Yes or no? Whether it's paying your bills, whether it's when you go grocery shopping, whether it's going out to eat or whatever it is, or you're tanking up, at your local gas station. Is the economy getting better for you? Because if you look at what's, at least the statistics, if you look at the data, the numbers, there's no question, absolutely no question, that the economy now is getting better and better and better. Remember, just 3 months ago, they all said the sky was falling. That when Trump announced Liberation Day on the tariffs, they said this was going to spark a recession, maybe even a Great Depression, that it was going to lead to a crash in the stock market, that it was the end is nigh, that this was going to be economic Armageddon. And instead, stock market now all-time high. It's never been higher. And I think it's going to continue to keep going up and up and up. He's now cutting trade deals. He just did a big deal with Great Britain. He's done a deal with Vietnam and Indonesia. And of course, he has now broken China in that trade war. He has won the trade war with China. Revenue from customs is now pouring into the Treasury. Over $25 billion a month, billion with a B. So we're going to get about $250 billion more in the budget because of Trump's tariffs. So manufacturing now is booming. You just had in Pennsylvania another big deal announced by Trump. Artificial intelligence, new technology, $92 billion investment. Pennsylvania is going to be at the hub, the very center of the AI new technology revolution. Nearly $10 trillion in foreign investment pouring into our country. Factories, plants are being built everywhere. As I mentioned, the budget deficit is now being cut by a third. You have the big, beautiful bill, no taxes on tips, no taxes on overtime. You've got the biggest tax cut in history. I could go on and on and on. Now, I can just say this, because this is where Grace and I slightly disagree. I believe now we are starting to enter just the beginning of Trump's golden age. I do the shopping in the house. Prices could be lower, I agree. But eggs are way down. Eggs under Biden went up over 220%. Under Trump, they have gone down 69%. I'm able now to get eggs at about $3, $3.50, maybe even $4, but more like $3.50, $3 for 12 eggs. Under Biden, it was practically double. So I see the price of eggs. They're coming down. Meat, it's still high, but it's starting to come down. Fruits and vegetables, they're starting to taper down. Look, what's happened is they're not going up. And the prices, at least when I shop, have stabilized. For some things, I'm starting to notice a little here, a little there. Prices are starting to slowly come down. I mentioned when I tank up, I clearly see the difference. Now, I'd like it to be, $1.89 a gallon, like we had under Trump in his first term. I'm still paying almost $3 a gallon. I think it was like maybe $38 or $36 it would cost me to tank up under Trump in his first term. I'm about $50 now, $52, but it's not 80 as it was under Biden. So I feel it every time I tank up my car. Now, Grace disagrees. She says the tariffs are now causing a little bit of inflation. She works in the housing. She's a real estate agent. So she says the housing market is dead. People are not buying homes. They're not selling homes. To me, that's because of Jerome Powell. I think Trump should fire him. I think he has the right to fire him. I think he should fire him. I think what's killing the housing market is not the tariffs. I believe it's the high interest rates. They're way too high, absurdly too high, and they're suffocating the economy, at least in the housing sector. So if Powell should be cutting rates and cutting rates substantially. And so I think he's trying to sabotage the Trump economy. Okay, but that's me. But Grace says the housing market's not moving. She says she's not seeing the differences in prices going down when we go shopping. We got ourselves a membership at Costco. This is maybe about 2 months ago. And Grace says the only reason why I'm seeing prices go down is because now we're shopping at Costco, which, you buy in bulk, but you get good deals. She says, no, it's the Costco effect. She says that's what you're not seeing. She agrees gas prices are a little bit down, but she said, I wanted more and I expected more. So according to her, she says, we're not feeling it. She says, what economic golden age? Things aren't worse. Things would have been much worse with Biden and Kamala, according to Grace. But she said so far, she claims she's not feeling the Trump economy. I am. I want to hear from you. 617-266-6868 is the number. Are your bills getting lower? Are your wages going up? Are you feeling lower prices at the gas pump? When you buy food, groceries, when you go out to eat? Is your standard of living starting to get better under Trump? Or has not much changed? 617-266-6868 is the number. You can also text the Kuhner Man 70470. 70470. This is from 603. And honestly, the biggest complaint I'm getting, I notice it as well, obviously, and Grace tells me about this every night, but from the audience, from this great audience, about the economy is the housing market. The rental market, which is way too high, but the housing market, how so many homes are preposterously expensive. So this is from 603. Jeff, in the housing market, it's not just the interest rates that are affecting buying. Have you seen the ridiculous prices they're asking for houses? A place that should run $200,000 to $250,000 is going for $400,000 to $450,000. They've literally priced potential buyers right out of the market by doubling the cost. So buying has cooled off. You see, I could tell that's a New Hampshire text, not just by the area code, but by the prices. A home that should cost you $250,000, they're charging for $400,000 or $450,000. Sandy, what does $250 get you here in Massachusetts? Hell, what does $450 get you here in Massachusetts today? I'm not talking 20, 30 years ago, but today. Well, what, a shack? You know, I mean, obviously it depends where you live, but in many areas, 603, you're looking at 700, 800, 900,000, a million easy in so many parts of Massachusetts. It's insane. Yeah. Sandy says in my ear, through Mike, 400,000 may get you a box under a bridge here in Boston. You're with the homeless people with 400,000. Let me just do one more, and then I'm going to go to the phone lines. 617-266-6868. This is from Nancy on Messenger. Jeff, I do feel some relief on prices at the grocery store and when I fill up my car. The only bill, and this is very true, the only bill that's not going down is my electric bill. Same thing with me. That's my biggest complaint every freaking month is that energy/electric bill. But let that go. The only bill that's not going down is my electric bill, so I have to disagree with Grace. I think in another 6 months, this country will be booming, and then we will all be saving money. And Jerome Powell has to go. We must get interest rates down. The housing market is stagnant. So I agree with you, Nancy, I right across the board. Every single point. Get rid of Powell. If we just get rid of him and start cutting interest rates, already you're going to feel the housing market start to really pick up. 617-266-6868. Scott in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Scott, and welcome.
Hey, I love your show. I love listening to you. I listen to you all the time.
Thank you, Scott.
I have to be on Grace's side right now. And let me preface that by saying I've been in the construction market for 40 years. I've seen many, recessions, booms, busts. I've seen it all. And what Grace has put her finger on is, yes, the construction houses are down, but also building warehouses, building schools, building police stations, industrial buildings is also down. Okay, and there's a real good reason for that. The developers, the people who actually want to start a new warehouse or a school, they're in a state of flux. And the reason they're in a state of flux is because the banks are very hesitant to lend them the money because the interest rates. Look at it like this, Jeff. If you're going to build a $10 million project and you're being told, well, the interest rates are going to come down a little bit, if to apply for a construction loan, if you just say, geez, if I can just hold off, a quarter or a 0.5% interest, you know how much money that's going to save me over time? That's one reason the developers are holding off, is the interest rates. The other thing is there's a big sense of caution with the tariffs. Just the tariffs, people are holding back. There's a sense of caution out there. And I'll explain it to you one more way, Jeff. When a project goes out for bidding, a year ago, and I've seen this, and I always ask the developers and the construction managers, I say, how's business? And a year ago they said, well, I'm pretty busy, and they're hesitant to get any more, bid any more jobs because they're quite busy. They're booked for the year. So most projects have 2 or 3 bidders. I talked to those same people this year, and they're bidding much more because they're not booked with construction projects. And now it's more competitive, and they have 6 or 7 bidders on that same job. What does that tell you? It tells you there's not as much work going on.
And Scott, you're saying that you think a lot of it interest rates are too high, and they sense they're going to come down. So people are saying, let me wait because it's going to save me a lot of money. So that's freezing some activity. I hear you. But you're saying a lot of it has to do with the tariffs because it's causing uncertainty and people fear that it could lead to price increases. So they're saying, let me hold on, let me wait, correct?
Correct. Let me just talk to you about one little thing. Okay, so if you're going to bid a job and you're an electrician, electricians have miles and miles of copper. Just to bid a job, if I bid a job and my copper wire, I bid it for $10,000 for the job, and then the project gets developed and in 6 months it starts. Now that same copper could be $30,000. So there's also that sense of caution.
Interesting. Scott, do you think, let me just ask you this, do you think Trump made a mistake in imposing the tariffs? Or do you think the mistake is he hasn't settled on a number? In other words, he's doing different deals with different countries. The negotiations are dragging on. He pushed the deadline back again to August. In other words, is it a tariff itself, or is it just the uncertainty because it's different tariffs for different countries and they haven't settled on a number yet because he's still negotiating?
These negotiations are taking way too long. You know, it's just dragging out the uncertainty, and it's holding off more projects longer. He's got to get this thing done, you know, one way or the other. So businesses can actually plot their costs coming forward, but they can't right now because we're in a state of flux.
Interesting. Scott, really informative call. Scott, thank you very much for that call. So there Trump's people are listening. Here's a business guy, a construction guy, contractor saying it's not even the tariffs, whatever, go 10% across the board or 20% or 25%. Okay. Really, it's remarkable. It really is remarkable. President Trump's approval rating goes up during the Epstein uproar. The latest batch of polls shows Trump is actually getting even more popular. And there's a lot of reasons for that. He's had many successes, obviously. But many people are saying when they poll Americans, they're starting, many, not all, but many are saying, I'm starting to feel better in my pocketbook. Many are saying their wages are starting to go up. Prices at the grocery store elsewhere coming down, gas coming down. They feel inflation now is slowly being tamed, and they feel now that things are starting to turn a corner. How is it in your life? Is your life getting better or worse under President Trump? 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, let me ask all of you. It is the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's. Mario's quality roofing, siding, and windows. And it's really, honestly, very simple. Are you doing better under Trump? Straightforward. Are you, obviously economically, financially, are you doing better under Trump? A, yes. B, no. I want to hear from you. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, Kuhn is in national ER. And again, I was super active on X last night. I'm always active on X. You can vote via X as well, at the Kuhner Report, all one word, Kuhner. Heather in Rockland. Thanks for holding, Heather, and welcome.
Hi, Jeffrey. Thank you for taking my call. So in answer to your poll question, I feel like things are definitely starting to get better. It's not quite where it needs to be, but then remember, he's only been in office for 6 months and Rome wasn't built in a day. So but I feel like it's definitely moving in the direction it needs to go. And the other thing I wanted to say is about the housing. The house, I mean, especially around here, I think it's more because the prices are so, not more, but I think a lot of the reason with the housing is the prices are just really ridiculously high. It's absurd. Although in some areas like Florida, I know prices are starting to go down because we're selling our house and my mother's moving to Florida, so and the housing is gone down and is going down in Florida. And our realtor said that the housing is going to start. The prices are going to start going down a little bit. It's going to stop being more of a buyer's market. But I mean, it's still kind of a seller's market, she said, but it's going to be a buyer's market. I really don't know how people can afford buying houses around here.
I'm with you.
Totally
Heather,
ridiculous.
I'm with you. Heather, it's funny you should mention this. Just last night, I was talking to Grace, about the housing market, and she was saying Florida prices are dropping like a stone. Port St. Lucie. If your mom's looking for a house, Port St. Lucie, you can get a beautiful home, $350,000. And the reason is a lot of second homes are in Florida. People can't afford a second home right now. And they're worried about, the high cost of insurance near these flooding areas. So people are leaving. And for whatever reason, and Port St. Lucie is not in a hurricane zone, but Port St. Lucie, you can get them for a steal. Arizona, prices are dropping like crazy. Las Vegas, you can snatch up now a really good deal in Las Vegas. So in those pockets, Nevada, especially Las Vegas, Arizona, where a lot of people retire, Florida, obviously, where a lot of people retire, for whatever reason now, the housing market is seeing a massive drop in prices. Here, look, Heather, like I'm in the confessional, okay? I'm telling you, my house is nothing impressive. I mean, I live in a, okay neighborhood. Rentham is a nice community. But I don't live in some, gold-plated mansion, believe me. We bought our house 13 years ago, just under $500,000, okay? And it wasn't completed. The basement still had to be finished. The attic had to be, wasn't completely done. So we even lived in our house for about 6 months as it was still being finished. Now, according to Grace, this is what she tells me, we could fetch $1 million. And my reaction to her was, who'd pay $1 million for this? I mean, it's nice. It's a nice home. I'm not saying it's a shack. But I'm telling you, it's not worth $1 million. It's not even worth close to $1 million. And that's what homes now are going for. It's insane. And I'm like, who can afford this? Anyway, Heather, final word to you. Let me ask you this, Heather. If you had to go home buying now, and you were, let's say, in your 20s, you're looking for a first home, whatever, could you afford these prices?
It's a good question you asked. I say this all the time. My oldest nephew, I have 3 nephews. My oldest is 25. I say to my sister all the time, and he lives in Boston and stuff, and he's working, doing his thing. I say to him all this. I say to my sister all the time, I'm like, why is he still in Massachusetts? I'm like, why doesn't he move out of the state? I'm like, this state is too friggin' expensive for these kids. Like, I don't know how these kids are going to be able to buy a house. No, I mean, I'm moving in with my fiance, and he has a really nice house, but we could get double. We're getting pretty much almost double for this house, than when we bought it. And I don't like you said, I don't think it's like anything. I mean, it's a nice house. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think it's. Would I pay that?
Oh, it's not worth what?
No.
Yeah, exactly. It's not worth what it's worth now. I agree with you. Oh, you're dead on, Heather. Very simpatico, you and I on this. Heather, thank you very much for that call. No, look, Grace will show me these homes. She said, look at this, $1 million, 900,000, 1.1, 1.2. I'm like, what? Again, not a bad house, a nice house. It's not $1 million home, not even close. So prices are going to have to come down. It's just who can keep paying this? 617-266-6868 is the number. Let me add just a very quick log on the fire. If there's anything you think Trump needs to work on, if you were to say, Jeff, gas prices, like them, coming down, good. Maybe groceries as well, where you live, coming down, good. Is there any part of your personal finances, your standard of living, that you think Trump should work on or try to improve? To me, it's my energy bill. That's the one. It just keeps going up. My utility, energy, electric bill, it's insane. It's absolutely insane. That's the one thing. It's not going down. Now, in many ways, there's nothing he can do about it because this is all Maura Healey and this net zero push that they have, this insane net zero push, net zero carbon push. And so they're trying to put, more solar, more wind, more of these so-called renewables, which are extremely inefficient and very expensive. So they're deliberately now trying to raise the price of energy in this state. So in a sense, there's a little that Trump can do. But I'm just telling you, that's the one Achilles heel. My national grid bill is insane. It's just like you're going to, really, it's just, you're going to force me out of the state if this continues. Nobody can keep paying this month after month after month. Agree, disagree, 617-266-6868 is the number. CJ in Boston. Thanks for holding, CJ, and welcome.
Yes, and it's great for gasoline to go down and for avocados to go down, but I don't think that's what's concerning Americans. True Americans feel once again the pride that America once had, taken away from Americans by the Obamas and the Joe Bidens, where Obama gave the Iranians the capability of getting the bomb, delivered them $150 billion on a pallet. Joe Biden letting in millions and millions of illegals, taking jobs, murdering and raping our citizens. That's what people are concerned about. They're not concerned about the almighty dollar, although that is a concern here. Our economy. Let's get on to the tariffs. The month before the tariffs were imposed, the United States took in $9.5 billion in tariffs. The month after, when President Trump imposed the tariffs, it was $16.5 million. What he needs to do is to get rid of Powell. A lot of these homes in the city of Boston that were listed are being pulled off the market because there are no buyers. Nobody's going to buy a house at nearly 7% interest rate in the city of Boston. Last week report on real estate in metropolitan Boston, the average cost of a home in metropolitan Boston was over $1 million. And what city officials need to recognize, and I've been trying to point out for years, is you take major cities such as Springfield, Boston, Worcester, when you go up on taxes, your insurance automatically goes up on taxes. And if you own a 2 or 3 or 4 family house, what these elected officials are doing is actually raising the cost of rent and raising the cost of leases to these poor people who are stuck into this. Eversource. Let's get on to Eversource. You want to know why your bill is so high? I have been on this for about 6 months. Channel 5 investigator Ben Semenu did an outstanding job in exposing most of what's happened. But I have sent him 2 emails to expose what the true problem of Eversource and National Grid is. And that's the mass fair share program. And for people unfamiliar with that, the legislature passed a bill in which you pay a certain amount of money to take advantage of this certain program in order to get heat pumps, new boilers, and insulation around your hot water heater. Here's the big problem with this mass say program. It's discriminatory. No renter, no leaser can improve a house's energy efficiency without the express consent of the owner of the property. This bill was highly discriminatory. It needs to be repealed. And I guess the big news of the day is Donald Trump has ordered Pam Bondi to go to the courts to see what can be released on these Epstein file. And if I just may make a quick point on your show yesterday on Epstein, when Epstein was arrested in Florida, they did not federally prosecute him. Word was that he was a government asset. So if he was a government asset, the question needs to be asked, do they want to hold back information because our own government was involved in this setup to extort money for people or to use them for their political views?
Well, yeah, I mean, CJ, I mean, I hear you. I want to stay focused on the economy because we've done Epstein quite a bit. But no, the sheriff who was part of the plea deal, who arrested Epstein, came out and said, no, I was told by people high up, go easy on Epstein. He's, quote, an intelligence asset. And, he's got no reason to lie. So that's why I say, come on, don't tell me this guy wasn't CIA or maybe even Mossad or who knows. And I did see that story as well. I think it's a very good development. It shows Trump is listening to his base. And, hopefully Pam Bondi is going to release some information. He says he wants it to be credible. He doesn't want to have, just accusations being thrown around or people's reputations being destroyed with no evidence whatsoever. So hopefully we'll see a little bit of action on that front. But look, CJ, to me, and I hear you, to me what is remarkable is even though it's a bit of a family feud, a bit of family drama, he's taken a lot of blowback from many of his most diehard supporters, but his numbers continue to go up. And I think that's a testament to just how successful he's been in the last 6 months. And I think part of it, it's not all of it, but I think a good part of it is people are starting to feel it a little bit. Things are getting better on the economy and in their own personal lives. And I know, I mean, again, I feel it. I'm not saying I'm living high on the hog, but I clearly feel it. Things are getting better. And my sense is once he can nail down these trade deals and really get stability with these tariffs, I think the sky's the limit, especially if he can get rid of Jerome Powell and start cutting interest rates. I think you're going to see this thing just absolutely boom. So fingers crossed. But Trump right now, he's on the brink. He's on the brink of maybe an unprecedented economic expansion. And with that riding into the midterms, he's going to slaughter the Democrats. Thank you for that call, CJ. 617-266-6868. I mean, that's why he's so frustrated with Powell. And he's right. You look at Switzerland, and their inflation is very similar to ours. Their interest rates now, forget 1%, literally 0.25%, 1/4%. And other countries, I mean, and Trump's saying, so let me get this straight. You've got our interest rates, how high? I mean, it's just, you won't lower rates while everybody's dropping theirs, and our inflation is as good, or if not even less than what other countries have. You're trying to suffocate the economy. You don't want to see a housing boom because if the housing market booms, the rest of the economy will follow. So I think that's a big reason he's got to get rid of Powell. 617-266-6868 is the number. But anyway, I don't want to get into, policy weeds. But there's no question. Things are better than they were under Biden, at least for me. And they're only going to continue to get better. Agree, disagree, 617-266-6868. John in Malden. Thanks for holding, John, and welcome.
Morning, Jeff. Morning,
Hi, John.
Morning. Prayers go out to President Trump because on the news he's been having some trouble, some little health issues.
Yeah, his veins.
Yeah. So that's another thing too. Another thing too is about the Epstein files. A couple comments on that, and something else is that if there is a list, which I'm sure there is, President Trump knows what to do, and he can use that to his advantage. And he's got to, make sure that that if his girlfriend does go out and say something to Congress, makes it to Congress at least, she should be well protected, for her to get there to say something. And and another thing too is I'm not worried about Epstein's files right now. More thing is if Chicken Little Fauci, if he has no immunity, go after him, arrest him. Definitely, crime against humanity for what he did. That's one thing. And for the economy, Jeff, when you go shopping, do you take your kids with you?
Sometimes. Sometimes.
That's the important thing. Teach the kids, because my father was like that. Going shopping, I would go with him. The important thing is there's always, you always look for a better deal, even for somewhere else. If you just, even though if you don't go to the regular shopping center that you usually go to, that's the important thing is you look for, you go shopping and you look for a deal and you see what prices are what, and you just go accordingly to what you can afford. And, the first caller, Scott, he was right about that, about the tariffs and all that stuff, and the building materials and all that. That's one thing I want to bring out on that. It depends on what's going on with the tariffs, and he's trying to swing deals with other countries, which is, it's falling into place because they know that he's kind of got him on the tariffs, and that's the outlook, what's going on right now.
Well, I think, John, you put your finger on it. If I was advising Trump, I would say on the economic front, I said, I don't know how much more you can do, really, honestly. That's what I would tell him. Look, interest rates are way too high. You're right. Powell is killing you on that. I think you have the right to fire him. I think you should fire him. Even if you don't fire him, Powell's term is coming to an end pretty soon. And he's going to replace him with, he's got a couple of candidates that are infinitely better. So interest rates will come down. So eventually, we're really going to see rates be what they should be. My advice to him would be focus like a laser beam on these deals and get this tariff regime really set in place. And that's because that's creating uncertainty and a little bit of instability in the business community. People are holding off on projects or whatever it may be, on investments, because they're waiting for what the final price of so many things are going to be. Now, I know Trump, that deal he just did with Indonesia. I mean, I don't want to crow. When you've outmaneuvered your adversary, you shouldn't crow. But he took them to the cleaners. So Indonesia, which they've never done before, is going to open up their market completely to all of our products. 0% tariff. Zero, literally. Zero. Zilch. Nothing. We're going to be tariffing them 19%. I mean, he killed them. Vietnam, same thing. Great Britain. He got a great deal with Great Britain. So he wants to get the best deal possible with the European Union. Okay, let me ask all of you. Is your life better under Trump? Yes or no? I mean, mostly obviously economically, financially. Are you feeling better? Are costs going down? Prices going down? Food, groceries, when you go out to eat, your bills, just overall. Do you find now that life is getting better for you, easier for you? That you have more money in your pocket? 617-266-6868 is the number. I want one quick point off of the previous call. I try to take my kids when I do the grocery, for the most part, I do the grocery shopping at our home. And I can't get him every time I go, but I try to always bring either Ashton or Ava with me. Why? It's spend time with my children, obviously, but to teach them how to save money. He's completely right. Really, completely right. The value of money. John was right. And so, I will go down the cereal aisle, for example, and say, I don't know, Special K, just as an example. Buy one, get one free. And I'll explain either to Ava or Ashton, yeah, get two of those. And they're like, well, why, Dad? Why don't we get the multigrain Cheerios? I'm like, take a look, son. Buy one, get one free. You've got to learn to save money. And the kids catch on. And they look at prices, they do, they start looking, they compare and contrast. And the other thing is when you go to the checkout, when I go to the checkout and say it's $200 or $250 for a week's groceries. And, they'll go, wow, that's a lot of money. And Daddy works very hard for it. I always tell him that. I work very hard, so you better appreciate it. Look, did Daddy get you meat? Did Daddy get you all the fruits and vegetables? Did Daddy, Ashton loves milk. He's a milkaholic. Ashton, and he's lactose intolerant, so I always get him the special milk, lactate milk. And I get him like 2 jugs, because he'll go through that like in 3 days. Ashton, look, it's $7 a bottle, Ashton. That's $14 for 2 jugs of milk. That's for you, son. Don't ever forget it. And, my father would do this to me all the time. And Americans used to do this as well. Remind their children not just how much things cost, but how hard the parents work to give the children the basics of life. Don't let them assume it, take it for granted, as if they're somehow entitled to it. Let them know, no, this came off the sweat of my brow. Mommy and Daddy work really, really hard. So you better be grateful. It's okay. They're not going to die. Remind them and remind them and remind them and remind them. And then it'll get through. Eventually it'll get through. 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree. Lisa in Belmont. Thanks for holding, Lisa, and welcome.
I have to agree with Grace on this. I think everything nuts. I went to my high school reunion last month. One of the people in my class said, Lisa, would you like a drink? I said, yeah, I have a White Russian. I'm like Ashton. I love milk. Milk, Kahlua, and vodka. She goes to the bar. It's $20 for a drink. And the bartender wants a $5 tip. She had to come back and get more money out of her pocketbook. I mean, a drink. You go with your husband, that's $50 for 2 drinks. On the way home, I'm coming home. My neighbor said, Lisa, there's a house for sale around the corner for $2.7 million. Get this, Jeff. There was a bidding war. It sold for $3 million. I mean, is this crazy or what? Supply and demand? Okay, Belmont, good school system near the hospitals, good location. They don't want to live in tornado country. You can buy a house cheap down there. But it's nuts. I don't see anything going down. Maybe eggs and gas. Well, hello. Everything else is crazy. What say you, Jeff?
Lisa, I don't drink alcohol, so you have me on that, so I don't know how much things cost. If you buy a drink Grace will order the occasional glass of wine, here or there. But that's about it. But that's outrageous. That's gouging. Really, come on, $20 for a cocktail? Plus, so Mike will go to the bar, go to a sports bar or whatever. He's in my ear saying, Jeff, it's pretty much everywhere now. These are the kinds of prices you're paying. That's outrageous. But Lisa, I've got to ask you, is this more of a Massachusetts, like Northeast thing? Or is it around the country? Like New York is insanely expensive. Whatever, New Jersey, Massachusetts. We have such high taxes, regulations. whatever. Everything in this part of the country is so expensive. But I don't know if this is around the whole country. Like, I don't know. You think in Phoenix, Arizona, they're paying $20 for a drink? I mean, I'm just, or Florida. We have a lot of people in Florida who listen. Whatever, Tampa Bay, Palm Beach, Daytona, wherever. There's a lot of, from, that area. Are you paying $20 for a drink when you go out, let's say with your spouse or a friend? But that's outrageous. And the house prices, Lisa, I don't get that. My house is not worth $1 million. I'm telling you. Wow. Okay, I'm getting an education today. I don't know. Maybe my wife is right. Maybe Grace is right. So talking to Mike, and, Mike likes to go with his friends, once or twice a week, whatever, to a sports bar. He's into sports. And he says, Jeff, look, I'm not a cocktail guy or whatever. I like to drink beer when I go out with my buddies. He said a Coors Light or something, a Bud Light, maybe $5 or $6. You can get away with that. But he goes the more upscale beers. And there's something called an IPA. Mike, what is that? An Indian? What is that called? Indian? Okay, he's not totally positive. But it's called an IPA, right, Mike? All right, so it's one of these, like more upscale beers. Mike says you're looking at $13, $14, $15. I go, for a bottle of beer? He goes, yeah. Okay. Jeez. Look, that's the one thing when you drink soda, like I do, it's a Diet Coke. That's, my kids have soda. I have soda. Well, actually, they don't have soda. Grace is cracking down on them. They drink water or juice. Okay. But anyway, I have the soda. It's $2.50 and it's unlimited refills. If they're really gouging you, it's $3, but it's all unlimited refills. So, I don't feel it when I go out to eat. You know what I mean? I mean, I feel the meal, but I don't feel in terms of price. But I don't feel the drinks. Grace will maybe, have a glass of wine once in a while. Now, Sandy is weighing in, saying, number one, that she thinks Lisa is underestimating that her friend may have wanted to be a big tipper. Because she says no bartender is going to demand a 25% tip per drink. And then she goes, Jeff, a reunion is a supply and demand situation where the venue is getting a percentage of the bar bill, so the prices are inflated. But then, because I asked her, I said, well, Sandy, when you and your husband go out, like, you like a nice cocktail once in a while or a glass of wine or whatever. I mean, are you paying $15, $20? Here's what she tells me. Cocktails, when she goes out, are $15 to $30. Sandy, what the hell are you drinking, man? What kind of a super cocktail? Oh, it's India Pale Ale. Oh, that's what an IPA is. India Pale Ale. Mike says it's extremely good. Mike says it's all the rage right now. But anyway, what kind of a super cocktail, is Sandy ordering? Anyway, $15 to $30. Wow. Sandy says beer and wine, you're looking at $8 to $12. Easy. She says, look, the high-end cocktails are an exception. But she said, look, most cocktails are about $16 to $18. Holy shamoly. Really. How do people do it? Seriously, how do you do it? Especially you bring a couple of Bambinos. You throw in a few appetizers. You have the main course. Everybody, you have a cocktail. Your spouse has a cocktail. And if you go for the desserts, you're looking at $300-400. Who can afford this? This is from Marianne, and it was very interesting. She lives in Florida, between Tampa Bay and Orlando. So here's what she wrote. Jeff, it's a good thing I don't drink much, because I do like a good Bloody Mary. And I'm paying anywhere, between $15 and $25 for a Bloody Mary? I paid $15 at the local Mexican restaurant a mile from my house, and it's not a fancy restaurant. It's a mom and pop restaurant. She goes on to say, and as far as the grocery prices, I'm with Grace. You know, a lot of you seem to be with Grace today. I'm with Grace. Yes, eggs have come down. Gas is down a tad. But overall, groceries are high, and you must allow for shrink inflation. That I've noticed. When I buy a bag of chips, you know, a family-sized bag of chips, that's like a regular bag of chips now. It's 2/3 air, 1/3 chips. Like I open it up and I'm like, hello, hello, hello. Like, you know, are there any chips down there? Hello, hello, hello. Anyway, so she goes on to say it's absolutely ridiculous. So no, I'm not seeing much in the line of lower prices. Interesting. Okay, so she says, I'm not seeing much of a change at all. And she said, even when you buy stuff, things are getting smaller all the time. That I've noticed. Even, you know, we had McDonald's the kids wanted McDonald's. So we had McDonald's last week. They should rename the Big Mac to Small Mac. You know, Ashton got me 2 Big Macs, like I always have, large French fry and a large Diet Coke. Because, you know, I'm watching my waistline, right? So I got to have the Diet Coke. I went through those 2 Big Macs like they were nothing. I mean, I'm like, look, they're getting short, they're getting smaller, and it's like the shrinking Big Mac. It's a small Mac. Soon it's going to be no Mac. You know, like that old Wendy's commercial, where's the beef? Where's the beef? Like soon it's going to be like the buns and, okay, I see the pickles, I see the lettuce, I see the cheese and the Big Mac sauce. Where's the patty? Where's the beef? It's gone. 617-266-6868. Are you seeing gas go down? Groceries go down? Am I the only one that's seeing this go down? And are you paying $20 now for a drink at a restaurant? Like a cocktail or a good glass of wine? 617-266-6868. Mark in Medford. Thanks for holding, Mark, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. Happy Friday to you, my friend.
Happy Friday to you, Mark.
Jeff, I just want to say one thing before I get to my comments. I'm going to say something that's probably going to make liberal moonbats' heads explode right now. You know how they have no kings?
I'm sorry, what, Mark?
The no kings rally?
Yes.
Okay, well, Trump is a king. But you know what? He's not the king that they think we think he is. He's King Midas, Jeff, because everything this man is touching is turning to freaking gold. Okay? Just yesterday, we were saying how his base, he's going to lose some votes in his base. Today, it comes out that he's getting even more popular. Can this guy do anything freaking wrong, Jeff? The answer is no. Absolutely not. And what I want to say about the big, beautiful bill and the economy right now, I do have a question before I get into my comments. In the big, beautiful bill, Jeff, I don't know this, so I'm asking you. Did he put in there that anyone making under $150,000 a year doesn't have to pay income tax, federal income tax? Is that in there?
It was in there, and it was taken out.
Of course it was. Okay.
Yeah, no, I mean, to be fair to Trump, he got, Mike, I think somebody crunched they actually looked at the bill, compared it to his campaign promises. He got nearly 85% of his campaign promises in the bill. He wanted to have no federal income tax for those making under 150, and the swamp took it out. And there were other things as well. You know, they always weaken the bill. 617-266-6868 is the number. Just before we go back to Mark in Medford, yes, it is the IPA that you order at a restaurant or a bar or whatever, is an India Pale Ale, and it is considered a more high-end, pricier, an elite beer. And apparently the reason why, according to many of you, and you all seem to be experts on this, so I take your word for it, it's got lots of hops. Very hoppy is the way many of you describe it. And it tends to have a higher alcohol content. And all of you seem to be vouching that it's phenomenal beer. And it's about $14-15 a bottle when you go out to a restaurant or a bar. It's not cheap. It's not Bud Light. Let's put it that way. $14-15 for a bottle of beer? Ay, ay, ay. Man. Jeez. 617. I mean, Biden really screwed us. He really screwed us. Because, it's hard to get prices down. 617-266-6868. Okay, Mark in Medford. Mark, buddy, let me ask you, how do you think the economy is doing overall, and are you feeling it, my friend?
Well, I am feeling it, Jeff, and I'll tell you where. I like to buy, certain things at the supermarket. I go to Stop and Shop, or I go to Market Basket, sometimes mostly Stop and Shop because it's closer to my house. So I find, I like romaine lettuce. Now, a few weeks ago, romaine lettuce was almost $5 for 3 heads in a bag. Now it's down to $3.99. Certain cereals that I like to buy, brand name cereals, they were $5-6 a box. Now I'm getting 2 for $5, the same exact brand. Watermelons, Jeff. 2 weeks ago, watermelons were $8 a piece. I just paid $3.88 for the same size watermelon the other day. So yes, I am seeing things come down. But Jeff, once the drill baby drill goes into full swing, let me tell you something, Jeff. It's game on. It's game over for the Democrats because there's no way they're going to say that prices haven't come down. And I'm going to tell you right now, when gas comes down to about $2.50, Jeff, I'm going to go online and I'm going to go viral. And you're not going to believe what you're going to see me say on social media. They're going to put it on the freaking news. I'm telling you right now. Okay? So when you see people like Maria Bartiromo come out on TV just 2 days ago and say tariffs are working, and the only reason why the interest rate is up is because Jay Powell is handcuffing Donald Trump. But like you said, soon he'll be gone and Trump will get somebody to do the job the right way.
Mark, it's funny, but I do go to other places to shop. There's a Big Y that I like, good quality meats, and I like their fruits and vegetables. But just like you, there's a Stop and Shop near our home. So it's closer, it's more convenient, the kids like it. So we'll go. And you laid it out really well. Cereals that were like $5, $6, $7, I'm buying 2 for $5. You mentioned romaine lettuce. Kids love, what Grace and the kids love romaine lettuce. I'm noticing romaine lettuce has gone down. Now, it's down $1. I'm not going to die on $1. But that's what I mean. I'm noticing it here, there. It's not just eggs. I'm noticing it. Peanut butter's coming down a little bit. Meats coming down a little bit. Fruits, bananas coming down a little bit. Blueberries. I'm like, that's not bad now. It was more like $5.99, even $6.99 under Biden. I'm seeing it now $4.99, for a quart of blueberries. So it's $1 here. It's 75 cents here. But it adds up. I mean, it really, my grocery bill, which often would be $300, is now $225, $245, $250. So, $50 here, $60 there. I'm saving about $25 on gas every week, and a little here, a little there, and before you know it, it's hundreds of dollars a month, and that's thousands of dollars a year. I mean, Mike, agree, disagree?
But Jeff, like I said, when you have people like Maria Bartiromo on Fox saying that, and even financial experts on this is CNN saying the same thing, Trump is doing something right.
Oh, I agree, and I think a lot of it is drill, baby, drill, and you're going to get more of that in the big, beautiful bill. And so, as gas I think it's going to hit $2 a gallon. I agree with you, Mike. Mark, forgive me. Mark, I think it's going to hit $2 a gallon. And that's going to really drive down prices. Mark, as always, thank you very much for that call. 617-266-6868 is the number. Let me just ask all of you, okay, very quickly, because I'm getting chastised by Sandy and by Mike, which is nothing new, by the way. Why, when I go out to eat, let's say, Grace, myself, the Bambinos, they go like, Jeff, you don't have to get an appetizer. You don't have to get a dessert. You're the one that's piling on the bill. No, I don't have an appetizer. Grace, maybe occasionally, or a dessert. I don't have a dessert. I'm diabetic. I'm type 2 diabetic. I avoid desserts like the plague. Again, Grace, if she feels like it. It's my kids. Whenever we go to Applebee's or Chili's or, wherever, my kids insist on the chicken wings. If I don't get them the chicken wings, it's like a revolt at the table. And then they're getting a tad more health conscious, so they like to have a salad. But they still have that main course. I don't know how it fits in their stomachs, but it does. And then they got to go for the whole enchilada because we're, quote unquote, going out. So they insist on a dessert. And yep, they eat it all. I don't know how they eat it all, but they eat it all. I've got a 15-year-old teenage son and a 13, she's going to be 13, teenage daughter. And she's really getting into sports and athletics. They're eating me out of house and home. So, yeah. I mean, I don't know if I'm the only one, but I don't want a revolution at the dinner table. So, yeah, they order the appetizers, they order the desserts, and before you know it, the bill keeps going up and up and up. And all I do is sip my Diet Coke. That's it. That's all I do. And eat the main course. 617-266-6868. George in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, George, and welcome.
Thanks for taking the call. I've been I'm almost on my 30th year for being in business. I'm in the home remodeling and cabinet making business. So this is what I'm seeing from my end. I think we're still in the COVID thing. It's like you win the war, but there's aftermath after a war. And what I'm trying to say is COVID's still not over. We're dealing with the aftermath of COVID. So what I'm seeing is people are locked into their houses at crazy low rates, under 3%. And until you can get inventory under the real estate market, you can't get a price correction. And that's what has to happen for the housing market. There needs to be a price correction because your scenario is similar to my scenario in terms of ownership of a home. My value of a home is outside bounds. I would never pay that for that home. So by lowering rates, that will entice people under 3% to list their house, to buy a new house. With more inventory, we'll see the market have a price correction. And that's really what needs to happen. So, it's like, everybody's like, oh, it's old ancient history. COVID's over. It's not really over. We're still dealing with COVID. Besides our federal budget and all the other issues that are associated with that. But, and I just, in people in socioeconomic areas where, I wouldn't consider really viable for business are now viable because people are moved to those areas, those communities, and they think the value of the home is 2 times what I would pay for it, or someone from the area would pay for it, and they're putting money into it, which is great because it's rebuilding the community in those areas that are a little more run down. But that's the fog of the COVID thing. That's what I can throw.
George, you're right. No, you're right. I think it's a really good point. Look, I've said this before, and it may be a tad of a stretch for dramatic effect, but pretty much I think it's an accurate assessment. COVID, in many ways, reminds me of World War I. It took an entire generation to recover from all of the damage, not just the loss of life and those who were maimed and wounded, but the economic damage, the social damage, the cultural damage, the political damage. It really scarred an entire generation. And I think COVID has done the exact same thing. Those lockdowns were unbelievably destructive. Unbelievably destructive. And the aftershocks, we're still living with that. So I think you're completely right. And look here, I'm locked in at a lower interest rate. Okay? Which is good. I'm not complaining. But say I sell my home, just for the sake of argument. Well, okay, I made a nice profit off of it because the value's, gone way up. But now I'm going to be paying the same thing for the same type of home. So where's my incentive to sell my home? There is no incentive unless I move to a part of the country where, housing costs are much lower. But if I just want to do a move, say within Massachusetts or within the Northeast, I'm like, well, okay, I made a lot of money on the house, but now I got to shell out the same amount of money to get the equivalent kind of house. So you're right. We need more inventory. We need more supply. Ultimately, that's what's going to settle this thing. George, thank you very much for that call. Really good call. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, I want to ask all of you, Kuhner Country, how are you doing in your everyday finances, your quality of life, your standard of living? Are you seeing your bills go down? Your costs of going out or groceries or food or gas, your car payments, whatever it may be. Are you starting to see your situation improve? Or are you your take-home pay? Apparently now wages are starting to go up. Are you starting to see more money in your pocket? And is that enabling you to buy more and to not be so stressed or feel so squeezed? Is your personal situation, is your life better under Trump right now, the same, or worse than under Biden? 617-266-6868. 8 o'clock, you know what that means. Kuhner's Call Log, Caller of the Week.
It's time for Kuhner's Call Log, where we showcase our favorite caller from the week.
I can hear you. Can you hear me? Thanks for holding, Muriel.
I really believe the Democrats, they had plenty of time to make their own phony list of people that went to Epstein Island because they were afraid if Trump got elected. That's the way they always operate. They have fake dossiers. They have these J6 committees. They're always after them. And I think Pam Bondi spoke too soon. She thought she had the real list. And I feel like the real evidence could be listed under the way James Comey used to operate was just change a letter and then it would be filed somewhere else. And I have a feeling the Democrats wanted to cover their rear ends. They had their own thing, and that's why the Democrats are screaming so loud to release the list. And the problem is all of the people on our side, now they're mad at Trump, and I think he's so frustrated because he knows they won that battle. And he's probably wanted to release the list, and now we can't because there's people on there that never went. The weird thing is like none of us know what's really going on behind closed doors. So something happened that we don't know about, and that's why I don't want to jump all over them.
And next week, it could be you on Kuhner's Call Log.
Please, don't be a stranger. Call again. Yeah, it was a heavy Epstein week. A lot of Epstein this week. I've never, in all my years on talk radio, on the air, had such a response. I had, there's been stories in the past where I got a massive response. But the texts, the emails, the messages, it was just, I've never seen anything like it. Many of you felt very, very strongly and passionately about Epstein and Trump's decisions regarding Epstein. So anyway, today we're not talking Epstein. We're talking the economy. 617-266-6868. Trump racks up another big victory. Literally just hours ago, the House of Representatives passed a bill that had already been passed in the Senate the day before, which now cuts $9 billion, a pure cut, a rescission as they call it, which has not been done in Washington in 25 years. And it cuts all the money off to USAID, which was the Democrats' slush fund. So a lot of these foreign aid programs have now been eliminated. And of course, it cuts taxpayer funding completely for NPR and PBS. And Trump is going to sign it today. Again, $9 billion in a $7 trillion budget is not, it's small potatoes, but it's still a very significant victory. And again, Trump is showing he's muscling legislation through Congress, and the economy now is starting to pick up, at least according to the polls. Agree, disagree? Caroline in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Caroline, and welcome.
For taking my call, Jeff.
My pleasure.
Thank you for taking my call. Okay. But first of all, in terms of President Trump with Epstein, you're going to be surprised by my answer, but I think that there's, like he said, but I would love to see that man in jail. He was so involved with so many things, and nobody ever talks about the mansion in New York City. But he was actually involved.
Caroline, I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. Caroline, can you do me a favor? Can you just hang on? There's just a little bit of an emergency here. We're going to have to take care of it. I promise we're going to come right back. Yes, Mike, can we just take a quick break? Thank you, Mike. Okay, we've taken care of the situation, so hopefully this won't happen again. My apologies to all of you. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, let's go right back to Caroline in New Hampshire. Caroline, you want to make a quick point about Epstein before moving on to the economy. Please pick up where you left off, Caroline.
Wrote a book called One Nation Under Blackmail, and she pretty much covers it all. He was involved with so much more than just that island. It's sad to say, but he was involved with MIT, Harvard, mRNA. He donated tons of money to Harvard, which they never gave back. He's a big fish, and I hate to say it, but he's going to get off. We're not going to, I do believe he's still alive. I don't think they would let somebody like that die, but that's just my opinion. And I think that there are so many other things that are happening that are so important right now. So to go to the economy, and I'm not putting that guy I wish that he was behind bars. He's a very bad man, very self-centered. But it's just, there's so many other things going on right now. So the other thing is, a couple years ago, you had a show on the petrodollar. And you said that the petrodollar, that after World War II, our economy was great, better than Europe. We actually came back. So everybody, all the representatives, I think it was from the UN, they all went up to Bretton Woods and they decided to use the United States dollar as the reserve currency. And so our currency was strong, so they gave us a gold and silver, which our dollar at that time was backed by gold and silver. So countries like France and England, Germany, they gave us our gold and silver, and then we gave them the equal amount of dollars because it's based on how much gold you have. That's how much dollars you have. It was fair. And then all of a sudden, France realized that we were printing more money than we had gold, and they asked for their gold back. And then there was some sort of a scheme, obviously, and Nixon took us off the gold-silver standard in, 73, 71, somewhere around there. And then after that, we signed the petrodollar deal. So we were basically the military for the oil with Saudi Arabia. And it was a 50-year contract, and that contract ended last year. And whoever was in charge, they didn't do anything about it. And on the other hand, we have the BRICS. Now, just so you know, the BRICS summit, Xi Jinping did not show up. What is up with that? Nobody knew where he was. He did just show up again, but that's unbelievable that he didn't show up for the BRICS summit. I don't know if you have any say on that, but here's the thing. We need to back something with the dollar. We can do all these things you're talking about. We don't have a dollar. We have a piece of paper. It's a fiat currency, and a fiat currency always ends. If you don't believe me, watch, there's a great series of videos by a man named Mike Maloney. It's called, I can't remember. It's from goldsilver.com, but he's a money expert. And it's on YouTube. Just look up Mike Maloney. He's phenomenal. He explains it through history. You cannot find one fiat currency that has ever lasted.
Oh, that's very true. No, I mean, I don't know Mike Maloney, but Ron Paul's been making that argument, and not just him. Many other economists. It's called the Austrian School of Economists. Ludwig von Mises, Murray Rothbard, many others. But Ron Paul is the most popular political or public exponent of that theory. And he's completely right. I think there's no question. If your dollar is not backed by gold, you're in trouble. Or anything solid, you're in big trouble. And Trump knows that. And so you talk about, say, China, why Xi Jinping didn't show up at that big BRIC summit. The problem Xi Jinping now has is that Trump has broken him and he's broken the Chinese economy. He told the Politburo in Beijing, Xi Jinping did, that he was going to win this trade war with Trump. He's now lost the trade war with Trump. There is now going to be high tariffs on Chinese goods coming in. The days of these massive trade deficits that we've been running with China, those days are over. So the problem now is for China, what do they do? You see, their whole economic plan, their master strategy was predicated. It was based on, well, we're going to continue to dump and dump and dump our exports right into the American market. And we're going to keep stealing American jobs and American wealth. And we're just going to continue to hollow out the United States. And we're going to build our economy on the backs of Americans. And Trump has now said, no, it's over. No more. And nobody else wants their plastic toys. Look, no insult to the Chinese. They're very productive. They can make a lot of products for a very cheap price because they use slave labor. But if they can't dump their products, who wants them? Because a lot of it is junk. We sold our soul, in a nutshell. We sold ourselves for junk, for garbage radios and plastic toys and all this stuff that was made in China, which, yeah, it's very cheap, but how long does it last you? It doesn't last you very long. And so this is now the problem Xi Jinping has. His economy is cratering. He's got mass dissatisfaction among more wealthy or middle-class Chinese. His political opponents are saying, you vowed that you would win this war with America and with Trump. And Trump outmaneuvered him at every turn. Now, the big asset that we have is that we're still the world's reserve currency. And that's why Trump is saying again and again, we have to start leveraging that. And part of leveraging that, and this goes straight to his tariff strategy, is people have to pay to have access to the American market. We are the biggest, largest, wealthiest market in the world. Well, you don't just give it away for free. You don't just let people come in and dump their goods, which destroys jobs and manufacturers here, and allow them to put up these trade barriers, preventing us from selling our products and our goods in their markets. Trump is saying, no. Those days are over. You're going to open up your markets. China, Japan, Canada, the EU, Mexico, everybody, India. And we're going to charge you a big fee for you to sell your products to the United States. Now, he said if you're a really good ally like Great Britain and you're really fair to us with your market, it's 10%. If you're going to be a little nasty about it and you're going to try to, gouge us, then you're looking at 25%. I think that's where he's going to go with Canada and the EU. But if you're China, if you're a predatory nation, you're looking at 45, 50, even 100%. In other words, we're going to bury you, man. So that's his. Now, the other thing that the media is not mentioning is, remember, they predicted doom and gloom. It's been months now. Oh, remember Liberation Day, these tariffs? It's going to be the end. Stock market's going to crash. We're looking at a recession. The exact opposite. Trump is winning the trade war. He's winning it with Canada. He's winning it with Japan. He just broke China. He's winning it with the European Union. One after another, they're crying uncle. And we're experiencing now, we're in the midst of a manufacturing renaissance. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, my friends, I think another reason, there are many, many reasons why Trump's approval ratings, even in the midst of this Epstein uproar, continue to go up. His approval numbers continue to go up. And it's not just that if you look at his 6 months in office, as I discussed, briefly yesterday, it is to me the greatest 6 months of any president in American history. Just objectively, what he has managed to achieve in 6 months is nothing short of remarkable. Remarkable. But it's not just his incredible achievements. I think what is also now fueling this continuing rise of Trump in terms of being embraced by the American people is what is now rising on the radical left and the Democratic Party. I think the two are inextricably linked. That for many, in fact, most Americans, Trump now stands as the last line of defense. His presidency, the success of his administration, is the last line against a possible communist takeover of the United States. And I've talked about Karen Bass, that Marxist mayor of Los Angeles, who literally has ties to the Black Panthers and a radical revolutionary Marxist movement that, by the way, she was a huge admirer of Fidel Castro going back to the 1970s, or that Marxist lunatic in Chicago, Brandon Johnson. Now there's a Muslim socialist who looks like he's going to be the next mayor of Minneapolis. And of course, you've got now the rise of Zoran Mamdani, an open Muslim communist. Listen now to this. In a video that has just been unearthed. Now remember, he's already called for, quote, seizing the means of production. He's already now called for government-controlled, government-run grocery stores. He's now calling for government-controlled, so-called free bus fare, a $30 an hour minimum wage. He's now openly calling for a rent freeze across most of New York, free government-controlled so-called child care. I could go on and on and on. But now he's talking about abolishing private property. Literally, straight out of the Communist Manifesto. This is straight out of the mouth of Karl Marx. Roll cut 8, a mic.
My platform is that every single person should have housing. And I think faced with these two options, the system has hundreds of thousands of people unhoused, right? For what? And if there was any system that could guarantee each person housing, whether you call it the abolition of private property or you call it, just a statewide housing guarantee, it is preferable to what is going on right now.
Unbelievable.
And I think that people try and play like gotcha games about these kinds of things. And it's like, look, I care more about whether somebody has a home.
He's a Marxist lunatic. I'm telling you. Obviously, he's never read any history. He's ignorant. He may have gone to the best, lefty, woke private schools because he comes from a very elite, wealthy family. But what he really is, he's his father's son. His father is a professor, Ivy League professor, who is a post-colonial Marxist. That's how he identifies himself. And little Junior here is just a chip off the old block. And so now, literally, you're talking about abolishing private property. Now, what that means in plain English, you don't own your home. You don't own your business. You don't own your car. You don't own your bank account. You don't own a thing. This is pure communism. There's no getting around it. The media keeps calling him a socialist. This is not even Sweden. This is not somehow a Scandinavian social democracy. Why? Because they don't abolish private property. The Bolsheviks in communist Russia abolished private property. Castro abolished private property. Mao in China abolished private property. When you start abolishing private property, that means you want the all-powerful state to control every fundamental aspect of your life. And what that means is they're going to start taking homes from those that have to give to those that don't. And this idea, honestly, think of how crazy this is. I want everybody to have a house. I want everybody to have housing. Why do you think there are so many homeless people in New York? You think it's what? The greed of capitalism? Stupid. Why don't you talk to a homeless person? Try. Instead of going to your swanky left-wing cocktail parties up in Manhattan. Many of them suffer from mental illness, drugs, alcohol. They're addicts, or as I said, they're mentally ill. And you liberals forced the deinstitutionalization that began the late 60s and 70s, and that's why we have a massive housing crisis, because we have a massive homeless crisis. And then you were the ones that pushed for massive rent control. So where's the incentive to build homes in New York City? None. Hello? And now your answer is to abolish private property? Wherever private property has been abolished, human beings are slaughtered by the millions. It's like 1 + 1 = 2. It is inevitable. It is inevitable. And this is what's being peddled in the United States of America? This is the guy that's going to be the next mayor, potentially, of New York? Which is supposed to be the very symbol, this is where Wall Street is, the very symbol of American capitalism, of American free enterprise, of American wealth, of American prosperity. And you're going to put this lunatic, this Marxist lunatic as mayor? Now, let me just tell you this. He's still polling in about 40% in the polls. He can't break that 40% barrier. But now Andrew Cuomo has thrown his hat in the ring. He's going to run as an independent. Eric Adams is running, the current mayor, as an independent. And of course you have Curtis Sliwa, the Republican candidate, who's going to run as well. Well, if they don't consolidate against Mamdani, that 40%, as things stand right now, is going to put him right in the mayor's office. Because Cuomo, Adams, and Sliwa are going to divide the anti-Mamdani vote, and Mamdani's 40% is going to be more than enough for him to win the election. If these moonbats in New York, and I'm choosing my words now very carefully, if they are crazy enough, reckless enough, ignorant enough, forgive me, stupid enough to elect a communist as the mayor of the financial center of America, a communist mayor, if they're willing, the abolition of private property and seizing the means of production, he's a Leninist. That's Lenin. That's pure Lenin and pure Marx. Then, hey, I'm sorry, but you deserve everything that you get. If this guy wins, Wall Street is leaving. Investors are going to flee. 617-266-6868 is the number. So let me throw this mini log on the fire, as I like to say. With the rise now, and it's clearly Bernie's party. This is now, Bolshevik Bernie now. He's the heart and soul of the Democratic Party. It's Bernie, it's AOC, Ilhan Omar, the Squad, the radical so-called progressive left, the socialist communist left is now clearly guiding this party, running this party, inspiring this party, and Mamdani is essentially a Bernie baby. In fact, Bernie has given Mamdani his big blessing, and so has AOC, obviously, because they're cut from the same cloth, the same communist cloth. And now you're starting to see this with all of these mayors in many of these blue cities. They are now all embracing hardcore communism, socialism, confiscation of wealth, abolition of private property, sanctuary cities, seizing the means of production. This is now, we're talking what happened in Cuba, what happened in the Soviet Russia, what happened in Mao's China, they actually now want to bring to the United States. And so Trump is waging war against them. Trump is calling them out. Trump is fighting them every step of the way. And he now, MAGA populism, is the alternative to Marxism and communism. I think there's no question. And I think this is why he's doing so well with so many Americans, because they see him as the last line, not just of defense, but really of civilization and sanity against this rising tide of left-wing extremism that is now completely consuming the Democratic Party. And now they want to take over some of the biggest, most important cities in America. And so I think Trump is benefiting immensely, not just from his successes, real as they are, significant and almost historic as they are, but because of who his opponents are. Mamdani should scare you. If Mamdani doesn't scare you, I'm telling you, he should scare you. Karen Bass should scare you. Michelle Wu should scare you. And I could go on and on. And this is the future unless we stop them and stop them now. Agree, disagree, 617-266-6868. Charles in the Freedom State, Florida. Thanks for holding, Charles, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff. Good to talk to you again.
Hi.
I'll tell you, I don't know if you remember, I used to live in West Springfield, and I just moved to Florida, because I think that the phrase that I like to teach my kids, and it's going to be on my statue someday, is that money is always there when you need it. It's just not always there when you want it. So I think that the president really doesn't make much of a difference in your life. You make a difference in your life, and decisions that you make is what decides how much money you have. And I think a lot of people don't get that, and they don't know how to budget their money correctly, and they put their faith into what somebody else is going to do. I had to make the decision to move here because it was the right thing. There were no jobs in Western Mass, but I also knew that moving here, I would finally have a job, and yeah, it would pay more. But the cost of living in Florida is a lot more expensive than in Western Mass. Western Mass is totally different than what people think Massachusetts is. And so houses here are all over the place. There are so many houses for sale here that the inventory is starting to go a little bit down because people are giving up. Their house is on the market for months, and they can't wait that long, so they're just giving up and waiting. And a lot of that is because new home construction is taking over. So the average person can't compete with that. So houses aren't selling, even though they're cheaper than they've been before. But so I just think that, and DeSantis is trying to do stuff to help out too. I mean, I think that local control matters. DeSantis is able to make a big difference here because he's local. He can do things that Trump can't do. For instance, he's trying to get rid of property tax now, and he's got a way to do it. And I think that on a local level, your governor makes more of a difference than the president can. And if you look back on your life, 20, 30 years ago, was it really much different than it is now? You're basically living the same way as you did before. It's all up to what you do with your life and how you decide to make the decisions. You can't go off of what a president gives you. My job is teaching, and I know that everything that Trump's done, I love Trump, love everything he's done, but he's not going to make a difference in the job that I do. It just doesn't. But when you ask, is there a difference in your life? The difference that I see, honestly, is not financial. It's something else. English is now the minority language in the country, and I don't know if Trump is going to make any difference with that. But I just went out to get something yesterday. I went to the store, and you talk to somebody, and they have to bring out their phone because they don't have they want a translator. They can't understand anything you're saying, and this is all the time now. You go anywhere, it's all Spanish, it's all Haitian, it's all something else. And so that's the difference in my life, is that it's getting harder to even talk to people because if you notice, everybody takes out their phone to translate now. So that's a big difference that I see in the way that I live. But I just think that life is what you make of it. You can't worry about who the president is or anything like that.
That's an excellent point, Charles. It's a very important, I think it's a very profound, and it's an excellent point, and it's a motto that I live by. You make your own opportunities in life, and you have to rely on yourself and never count on anyone else. And, it's hard work, it's self-reliance, it's personal responsibility. It's having to make hard decisions that's best for you and your family. And so, look like, it wasn't easy, I'm sure, for you to leave Western Mass. But you did what was right for you and for your family, and now you've relocated to Florida. And, you make your own opportunities. And look, I always say this. If you work hard, play by the rules, don't blow your money on drugs or alcohol or gambling, or if you're responsible with your money and your personal life, in this country, you will rise. Some rise a little more, some rise a little less, but you will rise. And there's one statistic that to me should end the talk of socialism and communism and Marxism forever. Because this is how great America is and the free enterprise system. If you graduate high school, not college, high school, and then get married, in other words, have a spouse, and then have children, you will not be poor. You will not be poor. You will be living, no matter what, you will be living above the poverty line. If you have a child before you get married, or you have a broken home or a broken family, then with a high school degree, then you're in trouble. You're in big trouble. And then you may have to get on welfare, or you may have to get on government assistance, and then you become trapped in a cycle of poverty and dependency. But if you get married, in other words, have a stable family, and then have children, and you have just a high school degree, and you're willing to work, obviously, you will not be poor. I'm not saying you're going to be rich, but you're not going to be poor. In other words, we are the first and the only country in the world ever that has actually genuinely conquered poverty. Let me repeat that. We are the first and only country in the world that has genuinely conquered poverty. If you just do the basics in education and then have a stable family life, and then you can have children, raise them within a stable home, you will not be poor, period. I mean, you got to work, obviously, but you're not going to be poor. That's never been done before. So you can make your own opportunities. And if you look at most people who are poor, I'm talking, homeless, whatever, drugs, alcohol, mental illness, whatever. You look at most people who've ruined, who say, boy, they really lost everything. Usually I'll just give you an example. Look, I understand divorce sometimes in a couple, you have to do it. There's psychological abuse, physical abuse, verbal abuse. I get it, okay? But even when, so you have a legitimate divorce. Here, I had a good friend of mine. This was 15 years ago. The lawyers got everything. They had a nice home. This was in Maryland, outside of Washington. They had a nice home. They had built up a nice, comfortable lifestyle. They each drove a nice car. She worked, he worked. And the divorce was so bitter. And they fought each other. It was over everything. That by the time they were done, he's broke and she's broke. They lost everything. Literally, they lost the house. They lost everything. Why? Because it all went to the lawyers. What I'm saying is, usually people are architects of their own financial ruin or financial demise. And so that's why, to me, it's not a phrase. I truly believe in personal responsibility. And so I've already given Ashton this speech. I said, listen, Ashton, don't you ever go on welfare. You may lose your job. You're going to go on unemployment. That's fine. Or God forbid you have a disability or something. That's something else. But, Ashton got, knock on wood, healthy, able-bodied, he's 15 years old. And I said, Ashton, I want you to be a worker. You don't have to go to college. I'm not asking you to get some kind of a degree. I want you to do whatever you want to do in life, because Ashton likes to work with his hands. I said, Ashton, you can get a trade, even if you don't want to get a trade. He's thinking about becoming a chef or a cook. I don't care. But I want you to work. And I don't want you to have children out of wedlock. I don't want you getting this girl pregnant, and then that girl pregnant, and then that girl pregnant, because I'll tell you why, son. A, it's immoral. You're the father. You're supposed to raise these children. And B, what are you going to be making? Alimony payment after alimony payment after alimony payment? So your check is going to be gone before you even get it? I want you to get married. I want you to, God willing, stay married. I want you to be a good father. And I want you to be a worker. And I said, Ashton, if you work and you're good to your wife and you're good to your kids, you'll be fine. I'm telling you, he'll be fine. Now, if the radical Democrats take over the country and start abolishing private property, and they start, literally taking all your tax money and, seizing the means of production, then no, you have to go to another country. You're not going to, that's communism. And unless you're a member of the party, no one does well under communism. But if America stays the way it is, I'm with you, Charles. You are the maker of your own destiny. That's the beauty. To me, that's the genius of America. Charles, thank you very, very much for that call. 617-266-6868 is the number. So that's, to me, the lie of socialism or communism or Marxism. And that's why it appeals to so many people. Because what Mamdani and AOC and Bernie and Karen Bass, and I could go on, what they're really telling them, okay, this is what Kamala Harris, you're poor because someone else has a house. Because someone else is doing financially better than you. Because they have a home or they have 2 cars or whatever it may be. That's why you're poor. No. You can, if you work hard enough and save, you can get yourself a house as well. But you got to work for it. You got to earn it. You got to make smart decisions. You got to, by the way, you got to sacrifice for it. That's another thing. Everyone says, well, there's not that many opportunities, say, for the Gen Z, those in their 20s. Yeah, housing is expensive. I agree. But no one asked you to get a $200,000, $300,000 student debt for a degree in French literature or French art in the 14th century. Like, in other words, there's a sense of entitlement. I can't tell you how many 24, 25, 26-year-olds I've met, I swear to you. Well, I'm entitled to a house. What do you mean you're entitled to a house? You're not entitled to anything. You want a house? Go out and earn it. My parents came, from the old country, nothing in their pocket, literally $10. My mother had $10 in her pocket and a freaking suitcase. You think they lived in a home? They lived in a small apartment in downtown Montreal. My parents said, you could hear the babies from, the other apartments crying at 3 a.m. The walls were so thin. It's okay. No one died. And they saved, and they saved, and they saved, and eventually they got themselves, their first home was a modest home. It was a small home. And then eventually they moved on. They got themselves a duplex. That was a big thing then. My father always said this to me. It's better. I don't do it. I don't practice it. I like a single family home. But my dad was like, well, you get a renter. So the renter helps pay your mortgage. I prefer my privacy, but that's how they did it. So he got himself a beautiful duplex. Okay. My point is, it didn't come overnight. It had to be earned. They worked for it, and it took years to get it and to achieve it. Now it's all press button. Now it's all like on social media. It's like ordering, Grubhub. Bing, just press the button. Well, no, life doesn't work like that. But that's what Mom Donnie is selling. You want an apartment? You got it. You want a house? You got it. You want free groceries? You got it. You want $30 an hour minimum wage? You got it. You want free childcare? You got it. Like, what? You don't want to pay for the bus and the subway? You want it all free? You got it. And they're like, okay, yeah. And then everything goes kaput. Because who's going to pay for all this? And by the way, he's a racist SOB on top of everything else. He wants to tax white neighborhoods much higher than minority or whatever, neighborhoods of color, however they call it up in New York. So, again, it's not just class war, it's race war. And that all he had to do was forget reading George Orwell's 1984. Read George Orwell's Animal Farm. It's a novella. It's about 120 pages? Okay? Children read it. They used to give it to kids, 6th, 7th, 8th grade. So, and see what communism leads to. Now, he knows that deep down because he thinks, I'm going to be at the top. I'm going to be the pigs, as they were in Orwell's Animal Farm. We're going to be calling all the shots. He's not giving up his swanky, he's got a very expensive apartment worth millions of dollars in New York. He's not giving up his rich, swanky pad. No. He's going to take your home and go to the, working middle-class neighborhoods and take everyone else's home and start redistributing it. But he's not giving up his pad. No. That apartment, that's going to stay. That belongs to the Zoran. 617-266-6868 is the number. Joe in Abington. Thanks for holding, Joe, and welcome.
Jeff, I just turned the radio on at like 8:30, and I heard you talking about my mom, I don't know how to say his name, the mayor.
Yeah, Mamdani.
New York.
Mamdani.
Yes.
Marxist Mamdani.
Yes, and I just heard the most frightening phrase from him last week, and I didn't hear your monologue on it. I guess I knew you were going to cover it, but when he ever said, controlling the means of production. I said, that has never been said by any politician anywhere in the United States, running or not running. Maybe it has, but I don't know it in some small city council race or something. But that was the scare, because that phrase appears in 1872 in the Communist Manifesto, written by Karl Marx. And in reflection of that, I'm like, there have to be 100 extremely wealthy, near billionaires or over. Maybe there's more in New York City who are in their 60s or 70s that have envisioned for themselves, New York is where I made my money. I have all my friends, and I'm probably going to die here, who are now trying to get to Florida. Why couldn't they just combine and get a massive billboard in Times Square just telling the people of this evil that's happening? I know the really poor will get sucked in because they don't read the news and stuff. So why can't they just, someone stick up? Like, is there a pack for Sliwa? Because Sliwa could still do it. If Eric Adams is the Democrat, Eric Adams is the independent and Sliwa is the Republican, Eric and Mamdani will split the vote somehow, and there's big chance Sliwa could be the next mayor.
Well, I think Sliwa would be an outstanding mayor. I think actually he's exactly what New York needs. He is the solution to all their problems. But the Republicans now, they're gone. They have left New York. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, my wonderful sister, Jennifer, Jen, who lives in Tucson, Arizona, with her wonderful husband and two boys, my two wonderful nephews, sent me this text about my parents when they first came to Canada, as immigrants. And she said, Jeff, you didn't get the entire story straight. Yes, everything you said about how they sacrificed is true, but you left out one important detail. When they were living in that small apartment, Mommy's fridge broke. See, I didn't know this. She saved for 6 months before buying another one. Wow. Think about what that entailed on a day-to-day basis. They don't make them like that anymore. So my poor mother, for 6 months, didn't have a fridge because they were saving and said, no layaway plan, no payment plan, no buy now, pay later, put it on credit. This was in the 60s when she came, married my dad. It was 6 months. There's no fridge. We got to save and save and save from our paychecks every week until we can actually buy a decent fridge. Can you imagine that today? Who the hell would live 6 months without a fridge? She's right. My sister's right. They don't make them like that anymore. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, we're talking, obviously, Mamdani, the economy, Trump, how he's the last line of defense against this rising tide of socialism and communism and Marxism. But just so that everybody knows, there is a big development on the Epstein front. I'm just going to mention it, and then we're going to move on. So this is what President Trump, wrote last night on Truth Social. Based on the ridiculous amount of publicity given to Jeffrey Epstein, I have asked Attorney General Pam Bondi to produce any and all pertinent grand jury testimony subject to court approval. This scam, he puts it all in caps, perpetuated by the Democrats should end right now. So, in plain English, he's now ordered the AG, Pam Bondi, to unseal the grand jury testimony in the, not just in the case involving Epstein, but in the Ghislaine Maxwell case. So we're going to get now a lot more information on not just Epstein, but on his co-conspirators, on his sex trafficking network and on the people who were named and implicated in victimizing and abusing all of these children. So, in other words, he's listening to his base. You know, may not be 100% what some of us wanted, but he's listening and he's opening up the files and they're starting to be released. So there it is, 617. That's what I said yesterday. I'm telling you, this is like a family argument, and we'll all kiss and make up when this is all over. 617-266-6868. Okay, just super quick. When communists say seize the means of production, and Joe in Abington was completely right, abolish private property, which is what Mamdani is now openly calling for. That's not just straight out of Karl Marx. It's what the communists did when they seized power. That's what they did to my poor grandfather. He had a modest farm, didn't have much. He was a peasant, a hardworking peasant, had a horse, several cows, chickens, very small vineyard. He also had some bees where he made some honey and then sold it on the local market. Believe me, he was not a rich man, hand to mouth. The means of production was his home and his farm. The abolishing private property was what he had. And as my grandfather told me, this land didn't just feed our family. This land was our dignity. This land was our pride. This land was our freedom. Here on this land, we were supposed to be free from the state and the government. And instead, they took it all over and collectivized it. They took the horses, they took the cows, they took the home, they took the vineyard, they even took his little honey shack that he had. They took everything. And right after they took everything, you know what they did? And they do it over and over again. They put him in a concentration camp. He and my grandmother for 3 years. And half of his family were murdered by the communists after that. Remember, anywhere in the world, wherever private property is abolished, human beings get kicked around. You cannot have the right to life and liberty without the right to property. Why? Because property diminishes the power of the state. Property, here, like my home right now. You know, we are kings and queens in our own castle. This is our property, our home. And there are things that the government, the state, no one, in fact, can do to us in this home. You take away private property, and that's what our founding fathers understood. You take away the right to life and the right to liberty. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, we're going to go right to your phones, but first, joining us now, as she always does at this time, the co-founder, CEO, president of Kelly Financial Services, and yes, that is her wonderful name, Kelly. Kelly, how are you?
Good morning, Jeff. I am good. You know, when a surprise expense hits, like a home repair, medical bill, or a family emergency, your retirement strategy should not have to take the fall. At Kelly Financial Services, we help our clients prepare not just for the future they hope for, but also for the curveballs life can throw. That means planning for rising costs, market shifts, healthcare needs, and avoiding some of the most common mistakes we see in retirement planning. We put together a free guide called 5 Retirement Planning Missteps to Dodge. It walks through things like budgeting, inflation, and why keeping your plan up to date is so important, especially right now, mid-year. If you'd like to request the guide or schedule a complimentary appointment, give us a call or email us at kellyfinancial.org we're here to help. Jeff, I'll continue this conversation with our Kelly advisors tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. on Safe Money Strategies Radio. Do tune in or visit our website for the Radio Rewind. Jeff, have a wonderful weekend. My best to Grace and the kiddos.
Thank you, Kelly. All the best to you and everyone at Kelly Financial. To get a free copy of that guide, and I urge all of you, if you can, do get it. Call now, 888-800-1881. 888-800-1881, or you can email Kelly herself, Kelly at kellyfinancial.org, Kelly at kellyfinancial.org. Okay, 617-266-6868. Very quick heads up. Many of you always ask me, Kuhner man, Jeff. When are you going to be on Newsmax? Could you tell us when you're going to be on Newsmax? Well, I'm scheduled to be on today at 11:45 a.m. Eastern Time. So I think I'm going to be up against a liberal again. They like to do that, do kind of a point counterpoint. So I will be on for maybe about 5 or 7 minutes. That's how it usually goes. So I will be on today. If you want, you can check me out. Newsmax National Report is the show for 11:45 a.m. Eastern Time. So in about a couple of hours. My sister, and by the way, Grace always says that Jenny and I, she goes, like, you guys complete each other's sentences. She goes, it's incredible. You guys agree when it comes to politics. You guys agree on everything. I mean, everything. So here's what my sister, because I was thinking the same thing. Well, she completed my thought. Jeff, wait till the moonbats in New York start asking Mamdani for free iPhones, free streaming, etc. They can't handle communism. In other words, they can't stop. They just can't help themselves. It's going to be free sex change operations. I'm telling you, free contraception, free birth control. It's going to be free until the whole thing just goes, bankrupt, kaput. There's nothing free anymore. It's all gone. 617-266-6868. Chris in Tampa Bay. Thanks for holding and welcome, Chris.
Yeah, good morning, Jeff. Listen, you're a little misinformed about the properties down here in Florida. I've been down here since 2015. Long story short is we've had a bunch of hurricanes. The whole west coast of Florida is still kind of abandoned because of Milton and Ian. My brother just got his home rebuilt in Englewood after almost 2 years it took FEMA to get his place back to normal. And things aren't as great as you think. Most you brought up a point that a lot of the retirees come down here to Florida, but they don't buy homes, Jeff. They live in double-wide mobile homes in what's called gated community, above 55 gated communities. They're basically trailer parks. That's the majority of the housing down here. Most people don't know this. I was going to buy a home, and guess what? We got homes that are controlled by the HOAs. They're not the homeowners association as indicated by the title. No homeowners are involved. That is a county government. And you also got to pay. So you got to pay homeowners association fees, as well as CDD fees each year on top of your mortgage. We've only got 2 insurance companies in here right now, and one of them is going to be thinking about leaving. Long story short is that it ain't the panacea you think it is. Also, with respect, man, you should know they can't become politicians. We're a constitutional republic. We are controlled by a constitution, and they will not swear an oath. Well, they'll swear an oath to uphold the Constitution because they have the ability as Muslims to be able to lie to us as infidels. Long story short is we are a constitutional republic. They can't implement their communist tactics. And by the way, you keep saying socialism, communism, and Marxism. Marx was one of the authors of a fictitious book called The Manifesto of the Communist Party, which was later truncated by a publisher. in 1842 to the Communist Manifesto. I've read it a bunch of times. Long story short is we got to be accurate in our information, or we're going down the tubes due to ignorance. These guys can't be mayors of our cities because they're self-admitted communists, and they have already stated plans to implement communism. Now, we're right on the verge of civil war. We've been in civil war since 2015, and guess what? We're not at the final phase where the bullets are flying. Everybody thinks, Jeff, that communism, one day no communism, one day no civil war, the next day full-blown civil war. That's not how civil wars work, and you know it. Long story short is we've been in civil war since 2015, and we are almost into the final full bullets flying kinetic phase of.
Well, I hope not.
War.
I mean, Chris, we'll see. I hope not. Look, we've got some very important elections coming up, and that's going to determine the future of our country. But look, to go to Mamdani, remember, he's a naturalized American. Okay, he wasn't born in the United States. He was born in Uganda. And he was also raised in South Africa and then came here, I think, at the age of 7 or whatever. But anyway, he only became an American citizen in 2018. And when you go through that citizenship process, you have to give an interview. And in that interview, you are specifically asked, do you support communism or are you a member of the Communist Party? And he answered no. He lied. He's a communist. The evidence is overwhelming. So they should revoke his citizenship. He has no right to be in the United States, period. Forget being mayor of New York. He shouldn't be in America. He lied to become a citizen. Lisa on Cape Cod. Thanks for holding, Lisa, and welcome.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Lisa?
Good, thanks. This is kind of perfect timing because you just helped crystallize the point I was trying to make. The other day we spoke briefly, and then I think I was accidentally cut off over a commercial. I had called, and I was drawing an analogy of, okay, well, let's say someone big who we can all assume is on this list was arrested, and then it turned out to be like Diddy, right, or something really awful like that. And you helped to set me straight. So that was not at all to negate the importance of justice for the victims and the perpetrators, right? But my point was going to be, as a cautionary tale, if the base is so, if they don't show up at future elections, there are plenty of Mamdanis and AOCs and WUs, and you can go down the list. They're all waiting in the wings to exert communism, etc., into this country. And that was what I was trying to convey, that it's just like, be careful how much it kind of, and it's lousy way to think of it, but I was just being cautious. You know what I mean? Because
no, I understand. No, look, Lisa, again, we've discussed, I think, the Epstein issue, the scandal to death, but this is big on Trump's part. What he's basically saying is, and I think it's a brilliant move, release the grand jury testimony so we know that that's accurate and credible. So, we're not going to get just garbage information that's just going to be thrown out there. And so it's going to really put some spotlight on who Epstein, some of the people who traveled with Epstein, who partied with Epstein, who are his co-conspirators. It's going to put the issue in many ways to bed. His base is going to thank him, and they're going to rally to him again. And I think, and with the economy now really doing a complete turn, I think we're 6 months away from this thing really taking off. I mean, I'm talking about maybe an unprecedented boom. He's going to come into the midterms with the wind at his back and the base behind him 1,000%. And that's what he's going to need if he's going to defeat the Mamdanis and the AOCs and the Bernie Sanders. because they're looking to gain power now at these midterm elections. And, I know there's many conservatives out there, and I understand the sentiment. Well, Jeff, let these blue cities fall once and for all. If New York is that stupid to elect a Muslim communist, then let him go down. Or let Minneapolis, they got another one now. He's like another kind of Mamdani clone, except he's of Somali descent. But, let him go down. These blue cities have been declining for years. They're overrun with third world illegal aliens. They run their cities, it's tax and spend, and they harass taxpayers and working class, middle class people. They've abandoned any loyalty to the United States and to the Constitution. If they want to turn themselves into third world socialist hellscapes, let them. Okay, I get the sentiment. But do you really want to see great American cities fall? I don't. I don't want to see Chicago, collapse, LA collapse, New York collapse, Boston collapse, all these other cities just start collapsing. I think it's going to be very bad and destructive for the United States. I'm a patriot. I'm a nationalist. I want America as a country to do well. Every part of America, every region of America. And then the other thing is, which everybody's kind of, I think, overlooking, what do you think happens after Mamdani comes to power and, drives New York, and he will drive it right into the freaking ground? You're going to see the Mamdanis now take over the entire National Democratic Party. So now they're one election away from taking over all of America. And B, you're going to get refugees, internal refugees. They're going to be fleeing New York City or Chicago or L.A. or Boston or Minneapolis, or take your pick. And where do you think they're coming? They're going to come to us. So they're going to ruin the red counties and the red cities and the red states like a plague of locusts. You don't think these people don't learn? That's the one thing I've learned about moonbats. They don't learn. Look what California has done. California has practically ruined Arizona. All of these Californians who are fleeing the illegal immigration, the open borders, the crime, the high taxes, the out-of-control spending, the left-wing lunacy on whatever, transgenderism or men in sports, and they go to a place, say, like Nevada or Arizona, and what do? They vote exactly the way they voted in California. So what do they get there? More illegal immigration, more crime, higher taxes, wash, rinse, repeat. Like, no. No. So, to me, let's cut them off at the pass. Don't give the communists New York City. Tom, red, white, and blue dynamite baby in New Jersey. I've got 1 minute. I hate to do this to you. Go.
Jeff, God bless you, man. I'll skip the opening. 4 points. Let's have a hearing on Ilhan Omar's citizenship. I want the flight logs of Jeffrey Epstein. I want Ghislaine Maxwell to testify, and I want to know if Jeffrey Epstein was a CIA asset, Jeff. Those are important things, and a major child trafficker is not small potatoes.
Tom, phenomenal way to end the show. Bang, 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 bang. All right, to the callers, you're always really good. But this week, I'm getting compliments even from upper management.